Welcome to Board Game Homies, where a group of friends play, review, and share about all things board games. Sitting around the table today is...
Reed.
Becky.
Gillian.
And I'm Angela. Today we have first, second, and third impressions of Brass Birmingham, also known as I Hate You. Give me your beer. But first, what are you guys playing? What are you excited about? And what is bringing you joy?
Okay, so we're talking about Brass Birmingham today, and I am so excited to play Brass Birmingham again. I have played this game over 25 times. I forgot to look up how many times we've actually played it. And this last game, I did something I've never done before, and I thought that I was going to end up way far behind everyone else on the score track, but I was last, but I was pretty close to everyone else. And I'm so excited to talk about this game and maybe play it after we finish recording.
It is actually the game sitting under the gaming table. It's hilarious.
Just in case.
I am really interested in King of Tokyo and playing that with my kiddo. And I know nothing about it other than the box looks really fun with bright colors and aliens and monsters and whatnot.
You are going to have so much fun playing King of Tokyo. I just think it's a super approachable game where you roll dice and you can buy some cards and you do a series of simplified actions and you get to pick a cool monster. In fact, they just released the new King of Tokyo
Origins or something along those lines.
Yeah, and it got me interested again. I haven't played King of Tokyo in a while, but it's great for kids. It's great for adults. It's a good entry-level game. You're going to have so much fun.
So it's all monsters. That's not an alien, just a fancy dress monster.
It's a monster in a spacesuit.
Yeah, it's a monster in a spacesuit.
Which I think they had to remove in the second edition because copyright issues. No, it was the Cyber Kitten. I think that's the one they had to remove. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
So yeah, that's the OG King of Tokyo right there.
It's a good game. You're going to like it. I'm excited about a game that Becky brought to one of our Monday work time lunches that we had, which is Splendor Duel. For context, I've never actually played regular Splendor, which feels like a librarian saying they haven't read all of these classics. I feel like saying I haven't played Splendor is me saying I haven't played a classic board game. But I liked the duel a lot. Essentially, you're getting gems from this board that you pull out of a bag. And I love bags and things that come out of them. And then you use those gems to buy cards that then count as permanent gems. And you're trying to meet 3 different scoring objectives. And whoever does it first wins. And it just came on to BGA. So I've been playing a ton of Splendor Duel online. I have been losing so much. I will say I don't always love digital implementations of it. And I feel like I can't see exactly what's going on the board as easy. So I would love to play this game again in person if Becky ever brings it to Board Game Lunch.
I just have to remember.
9 out of 10 does Becky text me and say, I didn't bring a game. What are you going to do? It's like, I have 9 in my office.
Well, I know Becky mentioned it an episode or two ago, but I'm really excited for Dune Imperium Uprising. As we're recording this, this is the weekend that Dune Part 2 just came out, and Becky and I are going to go see it tomorrow, and so I'm hoping that once we see it, we'll feel motivated to actually crack open Dune Imperium Uprising and give it a shot. I don't know why it's taken us so long to crack it open. It's actually already open. Everything's punched. Everything's ready to go. It's just we haven't prioritized it. So that's my goal for tomorrow, and I'm very excited to try it out.
It's shocking. You love Dune Imperium.
Yeah, we do.
And everybody says, this game's even better. And you said, but what if we didn't play it?
Yeah, we got obsessed with brass is what happened.
I mean, that's what this episode is about, so that's very valid. In fact, let's talk about Brass Birmingham. It's from Roxley Games, designed by Matt Tolman, Martin Wallace, and Gavin Brown. The art is by Damian Malamodi, Mr. Cuddington. The retail cost is $65, and if you get the additional iron clays, which are out of stock, but hopefully back in soon, they cost about $60. Brass Birmingham is a finely brewed 2018 sequel to the famous Industrial Revolution game called Brass. Gillian, how do we play this?
So as you said, in Brass Birmingham, we're taking over, we're taking control, or we are representing entrepreneurs during the Industrial Revolution in Birmingham, and are trying to be the most successful entrepreneur. And to do so, we need to kind of compete over two eras in time, one being the canal era, one being the rail era. And to do that, we basically put out coal factories, iron factories, and various different goods. So you have manufactured goods, you have cotton mills and the like. And your goal is to essentially make these goods and then sell them at the market to get money, to get victory points at the end. And one of the key components of the game is the two-phase scoring. So you'll score at the end of the canal era for both your industry tiles that you put out and you flipped, and you also score for any canals or links that you have connected to cities that have flipped tiles. The rail era is very similar. It's a lot faster in that coal is a lot more important because you're using rails. You can build rails faster, and you score at the end of that in the very similar way to the canal era, and where you're looking at flipped industry tiles and also your proximity to cities with flipped industry tiles. And so it's a card-driven game where every action you take, you have to expend a card from your hand, and so you're a little bit limited in terms of what you can do depending on the cards that you have in hand. But there are ways to mitigate that in the form of the new Scout action, which is new to Brass Birmingham, which allows you to get wild cards. And so you're going through the canal era, the rail era, and whoever has the most points at the end is the most successful entrepreneur.
Now, this game is a re-implementation of the game. So has anybody played original Brass?
Becky and I have. We actually own both Brass Birmingham and Brass Lancashire. We bought Brass Birmingham first, so that was our first experience with Brass. So we're biased in that capacity. I bought Lancashire just to kind of mix it up a little bit and give it a shot. And I remember we were playing and it felt a lot more constricting in terms of what you can do, because the Scout action, from what I recall, isn't available to you. So it's kind of hard to mitigate the card draws that you get. But I enjoyed it. It's been a very long time since we played it, though, so I don't know if I can speak much more to it.
Yeah, I don't think we played it again because I, at the end of it, was like, well, I just want to play Brass Birmingham.
I love the kind of fan fiction that developed it, and that concept of people loving a game absolutely so much they wanted to make it even better, and the enthusiasm that the Roxley team, is it Roxley? Mm-hmm. And the enthusiasm that the Roxley team had as they talk about it, as they think about it, and how they really chased this down to make a game that they would love even more.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was always very interested in Brass because it rose fairly fast up the Board Game Geek top 100 list, but the art really threw me off. It was kind of your standard Euro affair where it's just beige and kind of a drab-looking box, and also board. And then when Roxley announced that they were doing the Kickstarter, I think it was just revitalized it with the graphics and everything. So
that's funny coming from you, because you do love a dry Euro beige game.
Not really dry Euro beige. I like Euro games with flair, with like some good graphical appeal, which is something I like.
I love how steeped into history, and this is, I think, what I debate a lot in board games is how much does theme actually matter. You can play a game like Scout, which is like, we're circus owners trying to poach each other's circus performers, and the theme could have been anything, throw a dart at a wall, which is what I think they often do with Reiner Knizia games. But this one is really steeped into the history, a thing that happens a bunch, in fact, on our replay. So I think this is my fourth time playing the game. And we were re-explaining to Reed really quickly what happens. And I was like, Reed, you just have to remember that horses could take iron, which is why iron can be moved immediately, whereas coal has to come down a canal, which means you have to be connected to a source of coal. And just the fact that that is so seeped in history around the Industrial Revolution and how important beer was to your workers, and the feel and the tone of the game tied in with the historical significance of who your characters are, is just, for me, is like chef's kiss amazing. It is great gameplay, and then this historical tie makes me want to learn more about the Industrial Revolution, which is literally Something I've never said in my life.
I don't know what to add to that, but I 100% feel that. And I just love it when we're in the game. It's like, no, remember, there's a lot of coal that you need, so you have to be connected. And even every time like I said, we've played it. So Gillian and I have played it over 20 times, and we try to sell our coal back to the market. And it's like, no, you're not connected. Keep that.
I think I like that as one of the mechanisms that we've been exploring through different games is market variability. And it reminds me of a game we'll talk about later, Kutna Hora, but in its simplest forms, Brass does it very, very well. There is no coal. You build coal. Coal is now cheap. Everyone use coal. Coal is expensive. You build some coal. So I like that simplified version of the market fluctuating because it really informs what I can do on my turn.
I also really enjoy how money is the deciding factor in turn order in this case. If you spend a ton of money in one round or one of your turns, then the next round you will more than likely be the last player in the next round. So even if you're first in one round, you may end up being last. And so it's just a really interesting component because especially if you're last in a given round, you see what other people have spent before you. It might influence your decision in terms of what you do that round.
One of the things that I really enjoy about this game is the player interaction is really interesting. It's very competitive at almost any step of the way, like where you're placing your tiles, where you're placing your rails or your canals. And then the idea of competition for turn order is really interesting. And your decision making is based on the competition. It's not cooperative or anything like that. And I have no idea where I was going to go with that, but I think that there's a lot more interaction between players in this for some reason.
Oh, absolutely. And I think part of that is you can play a game, and I think that I'm learning not to love them, where you have a solitary board and you are just heads down. There isn't a lot of interaction with each other in the slightest bit. And here, every single turn is determined by what somebody else is doing. And I think I've had a few plays now where I was so busy on my own thing and making that happen that I then didn't see a player making a really bold move. In our last play, Reed was like, hey, what would happen if I could put out every single one of my rails? And I think we all looked up and said, oh, well, we've now all lost because Reed has done this thing. And we had another play where Becky and I were like, what if we just hung out up north and just flipped all our things? And Gillian was like, what if I built out Birmingham? And none of you got a single rail in there while I got it done. And so each thing that somebody does, to what Gillian says around turn order, is so important. Like, I think Gillian got to go first in the second era because he spent $1 less than me, which meant my beer was vulnerable, which means he was going to flip it and do a double rail, which meant then I had less options for rails and I had to use Reed's beer and flip it. The dynamic play between everybody, you can't just say, well, I'm doing my own thing.
Yeah, and I would say it's definitely like emergent strategies are the key to this game, where as you go along, you may have to change how you're playing based on where people build or what they build. And I find that very appealing in a game where you're not kind of set in this routine and you have to kind of work around what other players are doing and change how you're approaching the game. And to that point, like the breadth of strategies that are effective in this game is really impressive because I've seen people win in using different strategies, either building pottery, doing no industries as Reed largely did, where she just built out the rails and proceeded to win. And then, others just kind of being a diverse entrepreneur and doing a bunch of different industries. So it's really encouraging to know that, it's balanced to the point where you can take a risk on different strategies and still be effective.
All of this is why I love this game so much. And I don't think it was until just sitting here listening to Gillian describe the strategy and that it's very emergent. I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoy this game so much, because I do struggle in a game where I have to be thinking about like my fifth or sixth turn ahead from now. And I definitely feel like that puts me at a disadvantage playing against Gillian all the time because he's really good at that. And the way that I've always described Brass Birmingham is I'm like, this is like my favorite game, and you're going to be shocked when I teach you how to play this game that I love it so much. And I think it's because I get to be so thinky about it, but I'm not punished for not thinking 5 turns ahead, because you can't in this game. You can have an idea of what you want to do, but then Gillian builds where you want to build, Reed takes your beer, and Angela threatens you.
Is that part of the strategy? Is that part of Angela's strategy?
Every single game I threaten someone, and every single game I lose, so I actually think it's not working for me.
Maybe you just need to single one of us out.
I like how thinky this game is, how in my head I am, and each turn I get lost in that moment, and sometimes it's like, oh, I'm taking really long, but then everyone else is also doing the same thing, and it's not boring. It's you're using every minute of playtime to either think about your strategy, rethink your strategy, play, and I really like that component.
Don't forget about cursing at other players.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a lot.
Reed, I was just thinking about that too, because I think when we talked about Wormspan, one of the things I talked about was like, I looked up on turn 3, like, oh, we've just been playing solitaire and just like really in our own heads. And even though in this game, you do spend a lot of time just like thinking about what you need to do, what you have in your hand. Are you going to be able to use that industry card? Do you have the right location? Is Angela going to build there before I get there? Is Gillian going to screw me over? But even though we're, like you just said, we're all thinking these things on our turns during other people's turns, like it still feels very engaging.
Yeah, and to that point, you mentioned like the card draws and the industry cards you may have. So I'd say that's one thing that I found in the most recent playthrough, and it happened a couple times in previous plays that was a little frustrating, is you might find yourself at times without cards that are particularly useful to you. And thankfully, there is the scout action that'll help you kind of alleviate that to some degree. But in this game, I had to take that action twice, which felt like I was kind of wasting some time and turns. But it's balanced by the fact that if you take the scout action, you are reducing the amount you're spending on your turn, so you may have a better shot at going earlier in the next round. And so there is that way. But for instance, this last round, I drew 5 of the 8 cotton mill and manufactured goods cards, and I was nowhere near those areas that I could use those cards. So that was a bit frustrating, but yeah.
I think that's right, Gillian, because when you do the math, like same thing happened to me. I pulled, thank you, Becky, for shuffling very well. My draw had all 3 of the derby cards, and I was like, girl, there's only 3 derby cards. How did I get
Is that
them?
like mermaids? Did you just win the game just then?
Yes, I should have been able to. The problem is there was already an industry built in Derby. Then Reed, who had a connection, immediately built in it. So almost all of my cards that I got were immediately trash in the game. And when you think about the fact that in a 4-player game, you only get 31 actions and they don't combo. So like we may play White Castle later or Lost Ruins of Arnak, where you take an action and then it has rippling effects. This turns into this, turns into this, turns into this, and there are very tight decision spaces. Here, you don't get that level of combo. You get 1 action. So you only get 31 actions in the whole game because of the first game, or the first round, you only take 1 action instead of 2. But that makes your decision space so small, and the game sneaks up on you because all of a sudden it's the end of the canal era and you're panicking because the deck will go from very big to nothing, and you'll realize, oh, now I only have 8 actions and I need to sell 4 things. The price of coal is very expensive. There's too much iron on the board. Who put all these canals out? Reed. So I love that component of this game.
I like that you almost get a do-over halfway through. I think that that's really fun because I have not played this game this much. This was my 3rd time playing this game, and of course it's been enough time that I forgot some of the strategy and some of what I wanted to do. And I had a chance to redo it the second half, and I loved that. This is a game I very much want to play again, play more and more, and have different strategies that win. And I can be defensive or offensive and play to other people's strategies more. And I'm just not there yet. I'm kind of stuck in, oh, this is what I think might be a winning strategy. But that's kind of, if all goes well, that's going to work. And if it doesn't, I'm not nimble enough to be able to meet someone else coming into that.
Yeah, and kind of talking about the resetting component, one thing that's really interesting is you can set yourself up really well or really poorly at the start of the rail era, because at the end of the canal, you're going to clear all Industry 1 tiles from the board. But if you have anything 2 and above, they'll stay on the board and kind of serve as a launching point for you in the rail era. And so that's a pretty key component that sometimes doesn't always pan out. And so you may find yourself kind of shorted a little bit when you get into the rail era.
Yeah, I was trying to play. I had a level 1 iron out. I played it very early and got to make my money back off of a loan, which I super love the loan action here because you have to incorporate loans into the strategy because they're not super punitive. But I had built a level 1 ironworks, and I kept reminding myself, you need to build over that iron so that you can have something in Birmingham for the second era. That way you don't have to be fighting, because depending on the play of the game, Birmingham can be really lucrative in terms of rails that you place around it. So you kind of want a little foothold, or at least that's what I told myself. And then I forgot. And I watched my ironworks like go off the board, and I was like, oh, you're so dumb. You forgot. And I like that a lot.
I tried to play a new strategy this time than I had before. And one thing that I think I did very differently is that I went up the income track really high, like pretty fast, pretty high. And I was able to do a lot more because I didn't have to take as many loans as I had in previous plays because I had income. And I was like, oh, this is very nice to have this income generation that's here. And as I was going through the game and trying to play my different strategy, I ended up chasing coal so much that I ended up building coal so much because people kept buying it and then building more rails to be able to get there. And then I realized that I was playing the same game of a lot of rails, a lot of commodities that other people would be using. And I guess that paid off, but not the path that I thought it was going to be.
Oh, people flipped so many of your commodities because we needed the thing that you were a pusher. You were a coal pusher.
Though I think it's an interesting space in this game where you're trying to figure out, is it worth building my own and using my own resources to benefit myself eventually, or do I benefit someone else so I can do this action sooner, because then I'm not taking a turn to build what I need and connect myself to that if it needs to be connected, like coal. Also, Angela, I think you can only build over iron and coal if there's no other spots on the board.
You can build over your own, I think.
We've never really done it.
Well, you can build over other people's if there's nothing on the board or on the market.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that. Or I didn't remember
Which
that.
is,
I knew that you could build
in
over.
our playthroughs has never happened.
I thought there was still something about industries that you can't build over.
I don't recall. I've never done
Can you build over beer?
Yeah.
Oh, but nobody had beer.
But then you
I
lose
did.
the
I built over.
points. You don't get it twice.
But you do get the income if you spend it. But yeah, it's at the end of the game.
I guess if you need beer, you need beer.
Yeah, that's what I had to do in the last round.
And certainly early game, when you're gonna, if you can build a level 2, you're gonna keep it twice. And if you don't have canals, because the first railway that we played in this last game, there weren't a lot of canals on the board, and so it was a much stingier game to get to market. Whereas by the time we got to the rail era, there was a rail connecting everything except for, most notably, one single market was out of the loop. But I think that's what's exciting about this game, is just they play so differently every single time you play. I haven't had a game that has felt the same.
It took, I'm going to say, at least 7 games for Gillian and I to get all of the rules correct. We especially struggled with the cards because the first round you only get 1 action instead of 2, and you start with 1 card in the discard pile. And that's something that we did not read at first, or we missed a few times, or we forget to draw our cards. And so then we're like, wait, why are there this many cards in the draw pile? Or why don't I get to draw cards this turn? And so it took us a really long time to get just that one thing figured out. And there are a few other, I feel like they're nuanced rules in the game that we just missed or didn't quite understand. And one of them that I think was even after those 7 games, we realized that you can sell multiple industries with 1 card actions, spending the card for the sell action. And so that's something that I've been trying to like really explore in the past 3 games, probably. This game, it's incredible. I think it is tricky to figure out like who you are going to play it with and if you get to play it very often. In this group of 4 people around this table right now, I feel like we're super fortunate that we've played it 3 or 4 times altogether. But we've had some experiences teaching other people how to play Brass where like it just was overwhelming for folks. And there was like one game we played like just the first era just to teach. And then the goal was to like start over and play it all together. But the time just didn't work out. And we're like, let's get together soon. We can like while it's still fresh in your brains. And it just never quite happened. And I think there are some friends we've played it with who are just like, that was an experience. I don't think I need to play that again. And if you go too long without playing, you forget about the little things and you think that you remember them.
And I think that's where I struggled with this a little bit, is that I did forget about some of the smaller things and so felt a little bit befuddled on my turns, because it's different than a lot of games in that you pay what your cost of your turn is to the board, and then you have a bank that you get change from, and then you have these 2 cards, and then you do these actions, and then for some reason I can't remember the difference between coal and iron a lot. And so there are all these different components, and I still struggle with needing beer to sell things, and that's not very intuitive in my mind, and that's part of like being able to play more often and get to know that of, oh, my beer strategy needs to be on point, and those are the things that I want to get more out of the play.
Yeah, the rules overhead is high. I think I watched maybe cumulatively now 10 hours of Brass Birmingham content on the internet. Some of that is because I'm weird and just enjoy winding down by watching things. So it was a lot of how to plays in the beginning, and then for the first time watching an actual playthrough of other people playing a game, which I'm always like, I want to be playing the game. Why am I watching others play a game? But it helps in understanding the mechanics and the turn orders and just these little details that don't always come up. And then we've kind of had a little bit of a break before we played this. And I was like, oh, I want to make sure that I'm fresh. And so I watched the World Series of Board Gaming where they were doing Brass Birmingham as like the semifinals. And just watching these folks go about the game. And some of them had not played because they do like a random draw of what the game is going to be. And to watch people who have won the World Series of Board Gaming who had just learned the rules and maybe not ever played, how many questions they had to be about, like, it made me feel so good. They were like, one guy really knew how to play, and he's like, you're not connected to coal. You can't do that. You're not connected to coal. That's iron, not this. And for, like, these super professionals to not get it, I was like, oh, I'm so vindicated that I am not dumb.
That makes me feel better knowing that that's often what the 3 of you have to do for me on that. Mm-hmm. I loved that playthrough that you were telling us, because we get the benefit of listening to your thoughts about playthrough that you've watched, and the getting to see the hidden card is interesting. So in the World Series of Board Gaming, the first card that Becky was talking about that you deal down, the discard, that a player went around and looked at them.
Yeah, in the middle, and he was the really experienced brass player who I don't think won the finals, but there were multiple times during the game he would go through everyone's discard piles because he had memorized, and there's a little player aid that tells you how many cards are for each city, but he knew, hey, we only have this many cards left. I haven't seen these cities, or I haven't seen this many industry cards. Therefore, somebody is sitting at the table with them. And I was like, that is a level of intensity that I could never get to. Like, Reed and Gillian are our World Series of Board Gaming players. I think Becky and I have come to grips with that. But I just think that high level of understanding a game so much, it's to what you speak to, Reed, of just wanting to get really, really good at something, and something so dynamic and strategy heavy.
I figured out, I would say, kind of halfway through the second era, so the rail era, that I just needed points and that I wasn't going to get points in selling things, and I didn't want to get stressed out in trying to sell things. So then I just went for points, which ended up being rails, and it ended up working in my favor. But in my whole rush to get the end game, I didn't realize that I couldn't finish a turn, and it felt weird leaving a turn on the table. And you don't often do that with a game, but there wasn't an easy way to get an end point. And so that was a new experience.
She scored 71 points on rails. I can't even tell you how many points that is in a game that ends with maybe 120, 110 points as the winning score in a 4-player game. It was terrifying.
I think Angela and I scored around 35 for each.
Yeah, like on
Well,
rails.
and Gillian,
I
were you
scored
like?
25.
Oh, I was thinking you were
I only
50.
had like
I thought you
5
had
rails.
50.
No, I only had like 5 rails out. I scored 50 from the flip to tiles.
Yeah.
I do have some beef with this game.
Please, share.
Yes,
It's not.
please.
It's not. Look at Becky. She's like, what? What? The card player guide is very challenging for me. One, text super small because it's on the same size as a playing card. And I might be wrong, and it just might be in my befuddledness of having to keep track of so many of the cards. I feel like you don't just flip it. You have to flip and rotate to see the number of city cards. That could be totally wrong, but there is something where every time I look at the player aid, I feel like I'm rotating it.
The card for me is fine. I do like to be able to immediately check. But I agree. It's small. It's small font. And then you have to make sure you're playing the right number, 2, 3, or 4. Components wise, though, other than that one, this game is gorgeous. If you're getting Brass Birmingham, it's beautiful. The fact that they printed on both sides of the board a light side and a dark side, and that each of the player boards has a light and a dark side, I just think that speaks to the intentionality and the beauty of the game in a way that's not a dry, boring Euro. I will say, and I have a hard time with upgrades because I am, this will seem weird because I have a few board games on my to-play shelf that are still in shrink wrap, but I get to be a little more fiscally conservative around upgrades. I want to make sure that I get price per play up there before I buy anything. And I would say that playing with the iron clays for me is a amazing experience. And if I was to buy this game, I wouldn't buy it without the iron clays. The cardboard is fine, but there's just something about the weight to your money and fiddling with it at the table over and over again and having that tactile feel of these, like, they're poker chips, but they're made out of clay. They're very professional and fancy, is that I would invest the extra money in it.
This is a game that I absolutely love. I could see playing it with other people, but I love playing it with Becky so much. But I'm like, I don't need to get this game ever because I just want to play it with you all the time.
Yeah, that's hard. This is a game that I would not add to my collection. I could actually add the iron clays and use them for other things possibly, but everybody sitting around this table is who I would play brass with, and this isn't a good fit for me and my partner. This, I don't think, is a good fit for our other board gaming group. I think there would be a lot of analysis paralysis about what to do and rechecking on the rules. So I'm just sad because I want to own this game, and yet Becky and Gillian own it. So I will just come to their house and play it all the time. But it does make me sad that such a great game will just never end up on my personal shelf.
You never know if you're going to make some more friends who would like Brass Birmingham. You know?
Becky, it's hard to make adult friendships.
I know. I was just going to say, you could spend 3 hours trying to make new friends, or you could spend 3 hours playing Brass Birmingham with the friends that you already have. What would you rather do?
Okay, but also I don't want you to get other friends who are going to play Brass Birmingham with you. Is that fair?
Because then I would just be like, guys, I played such a great game of Brass, and Becky's just like,
Dead stare.
this is like your favorite game, Becky. I would never dare do such a thing.
Thank you. I appreciate your sacrifice.
Well, this has been Brass Birmingham. Thank you for listening to Board Game Homies. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and drop us a line on our Instagram page at Board Game Homies. See you next time.
Bees in Birmingham.
No.
I'm going to go blow my nose right now.
I was already recording, so it really is going to go at the
It's going to
end.
be in the bloopers.
Yep.